CNBC TV 18, celebrating 15 years of leadership.
Hello and welcome. You're with Markets today. I'm Surabhi Upadhyay and Anuj Singhal with me in the studios in Mumbai. Anuj, what a day for the market, and it was always looking very, very tentative. But I guess the silver lining is that all's well that ends well. We're still above 8,000.
Indeed, Sonia. Surabhi, all's well that ends well. But, technically we didn't really end at the high point of the day. So I think there's still some problem for the market, Surabhi, because, the market had a 120-point band today, but within that it moved about 260 points. And really, at this point in time, it's still a sell-on rally market. It recovered, but it was entirely on short covering and some buying by LIC. But my fear is that unless you see stability in global markets, unless you see 3 or 4 days of positive flows, this market is now a sell-on rally market, and it's headed towards, say, 7,800 to 7,850, which is completing a 10% correction. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. Today was an okay day. I mean, from the morning lows, it quite clearly recovered quite a bit, but you don't know for how long this recovery will last.
And it's such a critical couple of hours ahead as we all await to hear what the US Federal Reserve has in mind. But for now, let's run you through the top stories, the flyers. It's a day of volatility on the Wall Street. The Nifty swings 260 points to finally end down 0.5%, but holding above the 8,000 mark. Metal and select bank stocks see buying. However, Pharma, FMCG and auto shares remain under pressure. The rupee pulls back after touching a low of 63.89 in trade. Talk of central bank intervention and a recovery in equities helps the currency. Bonds also see some relief buying after yesterday's correction. And in stock-specific action, Bharti Infratel gains as CNBC TV 18 reports it's looking at acquiring tower major Viome. SpiceJet, meanwhile, ends down 5% even as the airline claims it has resumed operations this evening.
All right, and here are the experts that we have lined up for you on the show. Pramod Gubbay of Ambit Capital on how he's reading the current market setup. Sudarshan Sukhani, as usual, on the technicals, and Wilbur Ross on the global markets. But before that, let's talk about today's market, because as Surabhi mentioned, it was a 260-point band for the Nifty, or 260-point swing for the Nifty in a 120-point band. But the heartening aspect was that the advanced decline ratio that recovered from 1:12 to 1:2. Let's talk about some stocks then. ITC was the biggest drag for the market. In fact, that's now become the weakest stock from being the strongest stock at the start of the correction. Asian Paints, Kotak Mahindra Bank were also down. Pharma stocks were down in trade today. Lupin, Sun Pharma, Cipla, they were all lower. Then, of course, you had some high-profile names like Bharti, HCL Tech, ACC correcting quite a bit. On the gaining side today, there were 3 pockets. One was metal, so Sesa Sterlite, and in fact, a lot of other metal names, they all did well. Then you had oil and gas that had a bit of a relief rally led by ONGC. That stock was up close to 2% or so. And State Bank of India, financials in general, did well. And finally, on the mid-cap side, 2 or 3 stocks that looked quite weak. One was Wockhardt, that was down 10%. Then you had Apollo Tyres and Polaris, they were also down quite a bit. So, an okay day for the market, but let's see how things shape out and what Fed has to say, because that will have crucial impact on markets tomorrow. Surabhi.
Absolutely, Anuj. Well, let's get some market opinion going then. Hear out what the view is at Ambit Capital. They seem to be holding on to hope, and they say that perhaps these corrections could be a decent buying opportunity.
Times like this, at times of panic, when there is a big risk-off situation, it is very difficult to see a bottom to the market. Strategy remains the fact that we would like to buy into high-quality companies, particularly those where valuations were getting a bit uncomfortable. If we see a correction of 15 to 20%, allowing us to see that margin of safety, it is the right time to buy. The RBI has taken the more pragmatic stance in anticipation of this rate hike from the Fed. And as a result, the fact that they've held back for so long is actually proving to be the right thing for the RBI to have done in the Indian economy in general. But like I said, it all depends on what the Fed does tonight. If it is dovish, then rate cut hopes are back again. Fed may actually reverse its stance, or at least sound a lot more dovish tonight. Inflationary expectations have come off quite sharply over the last few months, given the commodity sell-off. That could really be a trigger for a pullback, not just in India, but across emerging markets, both in equities, currencies, and bond markets. So for all you know, so this might become a lot irrelevant, and we might see a sort of a pullback in the next few days if the Fed indeed sounds dovish.
All right, that was a call from Ambit. Let's talk about today's trade. Quite volatile today. Here's Nigel with all the F&O action in today's trade. Nigel.
Well, in the derivatives market, the Nifty futures continue to get sold into, and today at every opportunity, every time the Nifty tried to break into the green, there were fresh shorts getting piled into the system. ITC, that's the big heavyweight there, that has started getting shorted, and that's what's really putting pressure on the Nifty. But a couple of other counters that were getting sold into, they came in for a short covering bounce. The likes of ONGC, that stock ended higher, and the open interest was lower. While we did see some short covering, even on Cesar Sterlite, the stock that's seen a sharp correction, that one as well did come in for a bit of a short covering bounce. On the Bank Nifty futures as well, we did see some shorts cover their positions today. That's why the Bank Nifty ended mildly in the green, and importantly, SBI, the stock that was getting sold into in yesterday's trading session, that one came in for a short covering bounce, and because of that, the Bank Nifty managed some kind of a fight back in today's trade. But take a look at the options data. Put buying is making you big money. So the 7,900 put, the 7,800 put, as well as the 7,950 put. If you bought those particular puts in yesterday's trade, you would make big money because the premiums, they shot up in today's trade as well. The 8,200 call as well continues to get written, and that's a firm resistance for the Nifty, because even in today's session, the premium fell from around 40 bucks closer towards 21 rupees. But what indicates the bearish sentiment is that the 8,000 call, that's in the money currently, but the premium on that one as well crashed from around 150 bucks to sub 110 rupees. Goes to show call writing as well is making good money. Individual stocks that one focus, we did see Apollo Tires getting sold into in today's trade. Unitech, in fact, did come in for a bit of a short covering bounce, while on HDI, we did see some unwinding of longs after that stock has been sold into in the last few trading sessions. Vocart ended lower by close to around 10%. Unwinding of longs was seen on that counter, while REC, that was a real star. That stock ended much higher.
Nigel, since you also track Tata Steel, that stock saw quite a bit of rally in trade today and closed with gains of close to 1%. Take us through the Odisha High Court order and what that means for the company.
Well, Tata Steel ended higher by close to around 1% odd, and intraday the stock was higher by close to around 3.5%. That's on the back of the relief the company got from the Odisha High Court. They directed Tata Steel to resume operations, and importantly, these operations have been shut since mid-November. So this comes as a big relief to them, though it's only an interim relief because the company is allowed to continue operations till January 28, 2015. That's the date in which this case will be heard again. Importantly, Tata Steel sources close to around 70% of its total iron ore requirement from the state of Odisha, and this comes on the back of the relief that they got from the Jharkhand High Court, which stated that Tata Steel can resume operations in that state. Jharkhand contributes close to around 30% of Tata Steel's total iron ore requirements. Clearly, the stock was fairly excited. Now they'll source the iron ore requirements from the captive sources rather than buy it from third parties, either NMDC or international iron ore miners, and that saves them roughly around 2,500 to 3,000 rupees per ton. Deutsche Bank, they continue to be positive on the stock. They have a buy with a target price of 675.
All right, so that's Nigel with all the action from the F&O space, and of course all that kept Tata Steel up and about in trade today. Let's move on to one more stock that's been in news, and we're talking about SpiceJet. All SpiceJet flights were grounded during the earlier part of the day today after the oil marketing company said that the budget carrier will get fuel only on immediate payments. However, now the airline insists that it's working on a solution and claims that operations have resumed in Delhi. Speaking to CNBC TV 18 earlier today, the SpiceJet management said that the airline has made losses of 1,800 crores in the last 3 financial years.
The most recent financial year, it lost 1,003 crores. The first quarter of this fiscal, it lost 133 crores. And in the second quarter, it was a little over 300 crores. So 1,800 crores in the last 3 completed fiscal years, and about 443 crores in the first half. And Mr. Maran has so far invested about 1,600 crores by himself and the investment vehicle Cal Airways Private Limited. And it's not like we want to run away from our obligations. We actually want to raise more money because I see a great opportunity in the sector. Unfortunately, we've had a situation which has been forced on our hands as a result of lack of fuel supply. I just want to put this in a bit of a historical perspective. We have never defaulted on fuel payments, and we've always paid in advance and lifted fuel. We've had, as the situation is, just 2 days or 3 days of overdues, and the whole house has come crashing down on us.
That was SpiceJet. Well, let's get back to global markets then. In fact, let's get in a global voice. Wilbur Ross, the chairman and CEO of W.L. Ross & Company, says equities seem to be the safest bet right now, especially European banks and oil companies.
The thing we've been focusing the most on of late are some of the peripheral banks in Europe. Eurobank in Greece, Bank of Cyprus in Cyprus, both of which are selling at huge discounts from book value, but we believe are in economies that are heading for a very substantial turnaround. In addition, we've been looking a lot, although we haven't yet really committed funds, at the exploration and production companies and at the oil service companies because they've been so badly beaten up. Well, I'm a believer that rates will start going up sometime toward the latter part of next year, and that there may have to be an adjustment period for equities as alternative investments have better yields. I think part of the reason that equity markets have been so strong is that there's no place else for investors to go. Short-term investments don't yield anything. People are worried about long-term fixed-rate debt because they know the next cycle will be rising interest rates, and commodities have been quite dormant.
All right, let's head into a quick break now, but coming up on the other side, a technical chat with Sudarshan Sukhani, and we'll also get you some trading ideas.
CNBC TV 18, celebrating 15 years of leadership.